5 centimeters per second is a movie I saw over 10 years ago. It was one of the first anime movies I watched after getting into the hobby. If you were to ask me what I thought about it back then, I would have told you that I hated it. Unfortunately, since it's been so long, my memory is hazy about my reasoning. All I have for reference are some notes I left on an old review site after I had just finished watching it. Life sucks. Don't even try to be happy. Happy endings aren't real, accept your fate. From that alone, you can probably guess why teenage me didn't exactly vibe with it. I remember being so mad about it and feeling like I had wasted my time. And it seems like that isn't an uncommon experience. It has been over 10 years since then. And while some things haven't changed, it still feels good to rant about things I don't like. Lately, I've been interested in challenging my own opinions. Regardless of how I feel about this movie, it's an experience someone wanted to share with others, carefully crafted by a team of individuals, and took time and resources to make. It's one of the most popular movies on anime-centric websites, and people have really resonated with it. I want to go back and watch it again with the mindset that this is a work of art with a message it wants to convey. I want to set aside any potential misgivings I had about it, or even still have about it. I want to take a step back and try and understand why the story was crafted the way it was. I want to just sit down and give 5 centimeters per second the benefit of the doubt. 5 centimeters per second, very briefly, is a story about two childhood friends, Tataki and Teikari, who slowly drift apart because of distance. They try and stay in contact through writing each other, however, the letters slowly but inevitably stop. It's a sad and methodical movie. Anytime it gives you any hope, it almost immediately rips it away and presents a cold and harsh reality. It's easy to look at my comment from back then and write it off. Not every movie needs to have a happy ending, and they can present any message and theme they want. However, I think I was just trying to use humor to communicate my grievances with the film. I didn't understand why it was so pessimistic in its messaging, and why it didn't give us any closure for Takaki besides a slight half smile at the end. After rewatching it, I don't think it was trying to elicit feelings of hopelessness. Something you need to understand about teenage me, and honestly, this is probably still true, is that I simply did not understand subtext. Subtlety and deeper meanings were things that I just did not comprehend. I looked at media at face value, and that was it. Any deeper meaning is just someone else's interpretation because the film didn't outright come out and say it. With that in mind, you can see how someone with that way of thinking might come to such a pessimistic conclusion. Looking at it now though, I think the bittersweet overtones had more than one purpose. Not only was it relatable and validating, but a central theme of the movie seems to be accepting life's difficulties and moving on. Yearning for something, or someone, that you know that you'll never be able to have is presented in all 3 acts of the film. But there's an undercurrent of maturity and acceptance with how it's presented. Takaki and Akari's kiss at the end of Act 1 is bittersweet because they know they live too far apart to do anything about their feelings for one another, so they try to make the most of what little time they have together. Act 2 switches perspectives and focuses on an unrequited love that Takaki's classmate has for him, which she eventually accepts and allows herself to grieve. In Act 3, Takaki is so hung up on the past and what could have been that it gets in the way of his life and relationships. But by the end, he's able to look back, finally accept the past, and move on. A simple Google search will lead to many reviews and impressions talking about the impact this movie had on those reviewers, how it was able to translate a core human experience so elegantly, how it helped them through tough times when they were going through similar things to Takaki and Akari. It presented life in a sad but beautiful way that a lot of people resonated with and felt validated by. Watching it made them feel less alone in those feelings. The film communicates an uncomfortable truth of life, that time keeps moving forward, and if you keep yearning for something that you can't have, it can lead to emotional turmoil. It does a fantastic job in letting the audience know what that feels like. In an interview, when asked about why his movies had bittersweet endings, the director, Makoto Shinkai, said, "Rather than a story like, if I could just be with first love once more, I would have been happy, I felt that it was essential to depict a story in film where, despite losing my first love, I can continue to live on by extracting extracting meaning from loss as a way of life. It's a film more interested in making the audience feel a certain way, to self-reflect rather than having a conventional narrative. And I think that has a lot of value. The movie could have ended with Akari still standing on the other side of the train tracks and an implication of a reunion, but how does that benefit you personally? An ending like that could satisfy what we consider to be a well-crafted narrative that gives us a feeling of catharsis, but would that make you think about your own life in a new light? Perhaps if teenage me stopped to think about why this made him so angry instead of pushing those feelings away, he could have learned more about himself. It's one of the reasons I think the movie is paced the way it is. I've seen some call this movie slow and boring, but is that a bad thing? Having slow, methodical shots encourages contemplation. It can even bring on feelings of anxiety. It can make big moments later on have more impact. During the first act, Takaki starts to travel by train to meet up with Akari for the first time in a year and a half. Because of the snow, however, the trains go through delay after delay after delay and reaches a point where Takaki is several hours late. We feel the urgency and frustration in these scenes because the shots take their time. The anticipation starts to build as more time passes, and we start to wonder if Akari will still be there waiting for him. After a few agonizing minutes, we finally see them reunite, and it's an emotional moment. A moment that wouldn't have been as powerful if it didn't put you through those scenes. With that in mind, one might find it jarring that the movie goes from a contemplative structure to one where you have to keep up with everything that's going on. Act 3 feels like it goes at a blistering speed, at least compared to the first two acts. During my rewatch, I couldn't quite keep up with the visual information it was giving me and the implications of them. In my stupid critical head, pacing issues automatically came to my mind. But as I was writing that thought down, something came catapulting into my head that made me see this movie much differently and finally made me understand it on a deeper level. Lately, time itself has kind of been my enemy. The older I get, the faster time goes, and it's seriously starting to scare me how weeks and months can fly by without me noticing. You'd think there'd be a point where it would just stop, but each passing year feels shorter than the last. The third act of this film portrays that really well. The feeling that you can't keep up with things like you used to be able to. Everything starts to blur together. Your brain doesn't function like it used to. The movie was able to make me freeze up and start thinking about my life in a critical way. Time stops for no one, and once you hit adulthood, your life goes by in a flash. Takaki is so hung up on the past in Act 3 that he's depressed, breaks up with his girlfriend, quits his job. It's seriously affecting his day-to-day life. Kind of like me. I constantly yearn for the past. I miss when video games made me feel something. I miss the feeling of magical wonder I got as I imagined what kind of Pokémon were in the grass over the fence of Pallet Town. I miss not knowing common storytelling tropes and legitimately wondering if Goku was really going to beat Frieza or not. I miss summer vacation during my high school years when my friends and I would call on Skype all day long and play video games. We played Twilight Princess together, each on our own TVs, and made sure that we were always in the exact same room as we played. My friend put on the iron boots after defeating Ganondorf so we'd hear the goofy metal clanks as he ran to Midna. We read stupid comics out loud together that we found online and laughed for hours. It's seriously negatively affecting my life. I just can't seem to let go. My greatest fear for the longest time has been the future. I've been stuck for so long because I keep chasing something that's impossible to catch. Something as insignificant as pacing inconsistencies in a movie that I'm trying to find praise for started to make me seriously think about my life and the things that are holding me back. I started seeing myself in Takaki in the third act from such a small detail. I suddenly understood the themes of the movie and the monologues Takaki gave in the first act. Like, I understood them on a surface level before, but I don't think I understood them emotionally. After all that, does it matter if this was intended by the director or not? Does it matter if we, as the audience, got closure or not? Did the film intend to make me feel these emotions, or did they rush Act 3 because of the budget? I don't think that really matters. You can argue that you can accomplish getting an emotional response like this from people while also telling a story that follows all the freaking checklists we have in our head on what constitutes good storytelling. But, you know, I'm glad that this movie doesn't. I'm glad that it's different. Maybe we should pay attention when we have a negative reaction. Not to the movie, but to ourselves. You can do what I did over 10 years ago and take it out on the movie and give it a bad rating, or you could use it as a time to self-reflect. Perhaps what we don't like about something says more about us than we realize, and maybe that's why we try and hide it under the guise of being objective. I think 5 centimeters per second was the first time I experienced a piece of media that wasn't an escape. It was real, it was raw, it made you feel pain. Pain that was perhaps a little too relatable for 18-year-old me. And honestly, considering where I was at the time, it makes sense why I would resent it for making me think about life when I just wanted a distraction. I know I kind of glorified my adolescence back there, but past Jacob wasn't a happy kid. High school was a difficult time for me, as someone who was diagnosed with ADHD at an early age, as well as someone who wasn't diagnosed with autism until more than 10 years after graduating. I had a lot of difficulty making friends, had a lot of trauma associated with people rejecting me when I tried to be myself, was bullied for being different, threw away friendship opportunities because I thought no one would like me once they learned more about me. That period of my life was some of the hardest I ever went through, and I used things like video games and anime to try and ignore it. Escapism didn't just let me escape, it let me hope that these fictional stories about normal people were possible for someone like me. So seeing a movie that didn't sugarcoat the harsh realities of life just hit a little too close to home, I guess.